Welcome to Holding Space. Michael Zinn is a visual producer and creative photographer using his imaginative visionary energy to channel Zinn and hold space for spiritual and innovative discussion. Each episode creates a supportive, accepting, and open environment that allows exploration and expertise to come together with engaging and entertaining convergence. With guest and community all helping the shape of the way, Michael is grateful to be together to hold space. Now here is your host of Holding Space, Michael Zinn.
Yes, here I am. Well, halfway. Let me fill up the screen here a little bit better. What is happening? Here I am holding space again on a Tuesday. Grateful, as Todd said, to be here on the Sacred Spiral Network. What's up, all you sacred spiralers? This amazing network is growing. It's amazing to be a part of it. I was just talking to my guest backstage about the network and what it's all about and how everybody shows up, and it's all about intention and it's all about energy, and it's exciting to be a part of. So welcome on this Tuesday, February 10th, to Holding Space. What's up, Arnie Layton? I see you out there. If you guys are out there and you enjoy it, just type in the comments #live. Let the algorithm know that you are here, you're watching something, and that you recommend it to other people. Or maybe you don't recommend it to other people, but just tickle the algorithm with me. Why don't you? It just helps the channel grow. It helps the Sacred Spiral Network grow. And I feel like we're all here for a reason. We're all here on the same mission. And that's what tonight's discussion is going to be about. I'm pretty excited about it. I think it's a unique story, at least for my show. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. But before we do, we have a little bit of a protocol. I don't want to call it a ritual, even though it kind of is, where I like to clean out the space, set the intention for being here, take 3 breaths together, and just kind of ground. And I do that with the help of my friend Sage, Sonic Sage, not the kind that you light and smoke out the room, but the kind that you strike and breathe along with. So if you guys are ready to do the 3 breaths that we do here at Holding Space, in through the nose, hold at the top, the intentional push out of the breath. Let's do it all together. In through the nose, hold it up at the top. Push it out intentionally. In through the nose, number 2. Hold it at the top and then push it out intentionally. All that stuff you don't need, let it go. One more time. Last one up at the top. Hold it. And just release. Let it go. Breathing is fundamental, and it's fun too. Thank you, Sage. Keeps us alive. Connecting with the breath is amazing. What is up, Evelyn? Good to see you. It's great, like I was saying, all of the people who show up here and contribute your energy to the Sacred Spiral Network. As a matter of fact, we are talking about that very thing tonight, the Sacred Spiral Network growing. My guest tonight has a new show coming up on the Sacred Spiral Network. I don't know if it was announced yet or not. I know they usually do an announcement show and they talk about the show. But I'm here to hold space for my guest and his story, his part of the new show that's coming up. His name is Brandon Wainwright. He has a really interesting, unique story, and I'm excited to talk to him about him. So welcome to Holding Space, Brandon.
Hey, Michael.
How's it going?
Well, thanks for having me. It's good. It's been a while since I've been on the air, so
okay.
pardon me if I seem a little bit off center.
Okay, well, you got a cool setup there. It looks nice. I like the way you got your book in the background there. I'm excited to talk about this story. I think it's a little unique for me. Um, the cool thing about this space that we hold here is kind of like the philosophies that we subscribe to, right? And I think that it's safe to say this audience, this network, we talk about that we are spirits having a human experience. We talk about energy, we talk about frequency, we talk about things in a little bit, I don't want to say woo woo, but a little esoterically, than like the mainstream. And Kelly told me you were going to be my guest. I always look a little bit into the story, and it was a very heartwarming story. I specifically love stories where somebody is kind of in this kind of more traditionally conservative like occupation and just kind of like you normally would associate like a stricter mindset and a closed, maybe a little bit of a more closed mindset with some of that, but then you have this experience and then all of a sudden your whole world opens up. Speaking of Kelly, I see Kelly out there. What's
Yeah,
up,
hey,
Kelly?
Kelly.
Nice.
Thanks for setting it
uh,
up, Kelly.
and I see Tim out there. What's up, Tim? Everybody's piling in. Have a seat. Front row is open. Pull a seat up and enjoy. So your story is one of those stories. You were kind of like a little. Tell us your story. You were originally your occupation was
Police officer.
a police officer.
I was a police officer, yeah.
Yeah.
Out in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the city
Cool.
itself, but in the East Bay Area. Um,
Cool.
and yeah, I was, I wouldn't say I was your, the reality is that police officers are a lot more well-rounded, most of them, and they have a lot more to them than what the stereotype dictates. Um,
Absolutely.
but and I would say take that even to another level with me. I was, not necessarily your I was much more of the,
You were
friendly,
less
easygoing.
stereotypical, and
Yeah,
when I said that, it was with love, no
yeah,
insult. I mean, I just think that traditional roles, right, like how people perceive certain things.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all.
I just
But
thought I always like to point that out because cops get a bad rap, and
sure,
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there was a handful of people I met over my career that kind of fit the mold, but for the most part, they're the best people I've ever worked with. Very
sure,
really good people. So, uh, so I was in a more traditional that as far as earning money and that sort of thing. I've always leaned more towards jobs that are a little bit more, just reliable, that sort of thing. And so
sure,
I was drawn to law enforcement for a number of reasons, but that was one of them.
sure. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, and I was raised in a more agnostic family, not atheist or anything, but not religious. And uh, I I was exposed to church, different religions and churches throughout my life out of curiosity, and then also going with friends, things like that. And none of it ever took for me.
Hmm.
I even talk in my book about I was engaged to a woman that I'll just say I don't specify it in the book, but she's Mormon.
Hmm.
I was exposed to and I wanted to marry this woman, and I even there I wasn't able to take it in and make it a part of me because I just didn't buy
Right,
into it.
right.
But then
Sure.
and I'm still not religious, but when I had my experience with Tyson, that changed everything, shifted everything.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can imagine. And again, that's not to say I'm kind of with you too, and I think a lot of the audience as well, right, isn't necessarily into organized religion, but
Mhm.
there are certainly aspects about religion and Jesus's teachings that were about love, and we certainly, we resonate with that.
Well,
You know what I mean?
and as I progressed along, I do follow Jesus, just not in the the traditional
Right.
Protestant or Baptist style,
Right.
more
Right.
Course in Miracles style, I would say, is more what I'm in line
Great. I
with.
love that. Yeah, that's a good way to
Yeah.
describe it. Yeah, yeah. That's great. So tell us about this experience that kind of
Yeah.
turned your world upside down.
Well, Tyson was it's been a few years now. He passed away in 2018, but we got him when he was, I guess we got him in 2005,
Oh, wow.
and he was just instantly, it was a life-changing thing for me having we got this dog. I had a number of experiences with animals as a kid that were traumatic, and it was trauma that I had that wasn't even really consciously all that aware of. I kind of put it behind me, and then Tyson comes into my life, and it just all this healing immediately happened, and he was just he was like a person, and he was really challenging as far as he wasn't an easy dog to win over. And so I had to earn his love, but we had a very, very special bond, and it was like that one in a lifetime dog. That's,
Wow.
I mean, I'm a dog lover through and through, but I will never have a bond quite like I had with him, I don't think. And so when he passed away, he passed away in 2018. He was 14 at the time, and I knew it was going to be a nightmare for me. Just the loss was gonna wipe me out,
Sure.
and it did. I mean, it was brutal, but I realized within a couple days of his passing that I wasn't just coping with the loss. I was coping with his existence. Where is he? Is he okay? Is he this rich, beautiful soul? I can't imagine him just suddenly vaporizing into the ether,
Right.
and I ended up I realized I was struggling with it, and I talked to my friend's mom, who I went over and had coffee with her, and I was crying on her shoulder, and she's strict Catholic, right? And I'm talking to her about it, and I said, what do you think? What do you think happens to us when we die? And she goes, this may sound weird coming from me, but I think when we die, that's it, because we're just dirt, and that's it. And I thought, oh, well, that's certainly comforting.
Wow.
And so, I know that's not necessarily the standard thing you get from a Catholic, of course, but I left her. I was like, God, just really searching at this point, like realize I got to get answers. And so I ended up sitting down and talking with my wife at the time. I'm no longer married. And asking her what she thought about it, and she had a very religious Christian background growing up. She was well-rounded and down to earth, but she had this faith, and so I talked to her about it, and she says to me, I know this may sound weird coming from me, same preface as the other lady. She says, but I don't think heaven is some faraway place. It may not be what you'd think I would say, but I don't think it's some faraway place. I think it's all around us, and I think Tyson's actually very close to us. I think he's probably real close to us right now. What I didn't realize, she didn't tell me at that moment, was that he had come to her the night before while she was sleeping.
Wow.
His spirit had come, woke her up, and she had this whole experience. But hearing that from her, somebody that had all this background, and somebody that I had a lot of respect and love for, and getting that perspective from her, it cracked open my mind and my heart just enough, and also, given where I was at, needing answers and needing to know that my boy was okay,
Right.
I still get choked up talking about it even now, but
Yeah, of course. He's right there with you, man. He's right there.
He is. But it opened me up enough to where I was able to, I ended up reading this book called Animals in the Afterlife, written by Kim Sheridan, who's a naturopathic doctor, and she's also psychic, and she has all these. It's a autobiographical story, and it had and all these animal communication stories and reincarnation stories, and I was like, wow, either she's nuts, she's lying, or this is something
There's
that I
something
really
to it.
needed to check out. And so I
Right.
ended up doing some sessions myself, long story short. And I had this amazing experience with an animal communicator named Sandy Casca. And there was no question we were talking to Tyson, and then from there, I had a mediumship reading a little bit after that. It was all kind of overwhelming at the time. I was like, wait a minute, am I like lying to myself here? Is it just wishful thinking? Am I just like not wanting to accept that my dog is gone and I'm never going to see him again? I mean, there's
Right.
all these questions were logical, more critical police officer
Sure.
type questions.
Yeah. Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
But so slowly I was opening, and then this mediumship that I've had quite a few remarkable ones, but that first one blew my mind. And I walked out of there like, okay, that's it. This is real. And I gotta go down this rabbit hole and see where it takes me. And
Right.
and I also decided I wanted to find out what my abilities might be in being able to tap into spirit. And so that's when I got into energy work, and then that's been a whole other, since then it's been this whole thing.
I want to kind of take a break there and kind of ask you some questions, because it's interesting, and I hope you don't mind me asking you this. And I'm imagining that it has something to do with the bond that you have. And my
Love's a
question
great
is,
driver.
yeah, my question is, it seems like this was the first time that you were brought to that question, right? So I mean, had you experienced death before with family?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, I was 45 years old at the time. It's not that I hadn't asked these questions before. I just always, kind of in a, not a cynical way, but just a kind of a hardened, suck it up, this is life type of way is the way I dealt with it in the past. The first human that I lost was my grandfather when I was 9, and I remember it was like life altering. It was intense, just knowing I was never going to see this man again, just like everybody else goes through. But I never went down. And actually, incidentally, with him, I had 2 different visitations from him after, and then in the following years after that. And, but it was just one of those things where I just accepted it and didn't worry about it too much. And I just figured, it is what it is. I'm going to die, and it's going to be what it's going to be. They died, and it's going to be what it's going to be.
Right.
But with Tyson, it was he was like my child, and I needed more. I needed answers, and it didn't. I didn't care what what religion told or whatever. I needed to know for sure. And I had been exposed to different spiritualist things. Like my stepmom she's got psychic ability, and she had studied, and so I had some exposure to it. My dad is very spiritual, and I discussed. I mean, he's not like a heavy practicer or anything. He doesn't do energy work. He never went and tried to see what his abilities were, but he has a very spiritualist view on things that he shared with me over the years, but it was never like really strict or something that he practiced on a day-to-day basis or even week or monthly basis. It was just, but it was concepts that I was exposed to just enough to where it wasn't completely out of my wheelhouse. And so when the time came for me to really delve in, it was like the culmination of all these different things, like the perfect storm. And the love for Tyson was the ultimate driver. And so, I think everybody that comes to this place in their life has something, whether it be they blow open and they all of a sudden they start seeing things and hearing things and whatever, or maybe like in my case, you lose a beloved pet,
Right.
and next thing you know,
Right. Yeah, no, and
you
I
know,
did find that very interesting, and again, I'm kind of interested in that bond, or not to know the specifics of it necessarily, but just to even understand what you're saying about it, right? Like the power of that bond brought you to a place in your mind that you hadn't gone to. You hadn't really thought about death. You were just, it sounds like you were good with it, right? Like you were like, okay, when it happens, it happens. Not like, I think there's a lot of people who walk around fearing death. Oh my God, what happens when I die? Where do I go? All of that.
yeah, I
And it
didn't.
just,
Yeah, it wasn't because it wasn't fear. It was just it was the loss of it. That loss was something I needed to know he was okay.
right.
That was the main thing for me. It wasn't even necessarily that I was going to stay connected to him, which of course now, and I've had experiences with him since the writing the book and
Right.
things. I've even got a picture of him in spirit,
Oh,
literally.
wow.
Yeah.
What's the story behind that?
Yeah. It's basic. I'm going to tell about it in my second book.
Okay. Okay.
But basically, an angel and him showed up in light coming through the window,
Okay.
and it was like I'm looking at it, and it's like that. This has got to be my brain playing tricks on me.
So you took a
And
picture.
and I did. I took a picture, and you can clearly see it. It's pretty remarkable.
Amazing. Amazing.
But I'll tell more about that in my second book.
Okay. Okay.
But that wasn't even really the issue. Wasn't even I wasn't thinking that I was going to be able to stay connected to him. I just wanted to know he was okay.
Yeah.
I needed to know that beautiful soul lived on, and or at least have some understanding of where where he was and what
Right.
was going on. And I
It's,
think
it, it's
I think this is probably the case for most people. At
Mhm,
some
mhm.
point they hit that. I don't know though. For me, it's just 45 years old and it finally hit. I didn't,
Yeah,
before he
that's what
passed
I find
away.
interesting.
I never had an animal. I had a bird that lived till they died with me, but I never had a dog. I'd had
Right.
a number of dogs as a kid, but they were all taken away from me. So
Mm,
this was my first bout with losing, especially a dog that I was this close to,
right.
and it was kind of weird. Like I was a little bit delusional. Like I felt even though I intellectually knew he was going to live, he wasn't going to live forever. There was a
Mhm.
part of me that believed he was going to live forever.
Right.
Like that
Right.
I was never,
You just
I
didn't
was
think
like in
about it. Yeah.
denial
Yeah.
about what it was going to be like and how impactful it was going to be. I look back on it and it was like, dude, you know, you were had the blinders on, man. You were in denial completely about how intense it was going to be, but
Wow.
it's all right. It's been a beautiful experience overall.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, we didn't even really get into it yet about how it's changed you. I want to talk about that first experience that you had with Tyson through the medium. Before I do that, I just want to catch up a little bit because Courtney Lopez is out there saying hello to you. She
Hey,
says it's
Courtney.
been a while. Um, and I see Kim Princess out there. Michael Christopher is out there.
Michael, thank you for coming. I had Michael on my old show.
Yeah, Michael's great.
He's,
Awesome.
he's been
Another
supportive.
great sacred spiraler, Just really, really, really great energy. All the people there are just amazing. Okay, so let's get back to the story. You saw a medium because you wanted to connect. And what
Mm.
was that experience like? And like you also mentioned you were questioning yourself, right? Am I just fooling myself because I want this? So I want to know like what cemented it for you, and I want to know what that experience was like.
Well, I mean, even after, to be honest, I had three different readings from three different animal communicators, and the first two, they were just they weren't specific enough. The information,
Mhm.
and I needed this. I was very skeptical, even though I wanted to
Sure.
believe, and it didn't convince me. I wasn't saying, I wasn't about to say that it didn't really work, that it wasn't real, but what I was saying was clearly I'm not going to be able to connect with my dog, and
Mm-hmm.
and if it is real, I'm, that's great, but I'm probably not going to have that experience with it, and I'm just going to have to accept that and move forward. That was where I was at going into the third reading, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I kind
Mm-hmm.
of, I did it kind of on a whim and scheduled it, and I'm glad I did, obviously, because it changed everything. But there was just, I write about it in the book, but there was very specific information about his physicality.
Mm-hmm.
He had certain physical features, and also the nature of my relationship with him versus my ex-wives and my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
It was very subtle, but
Mm-hmm.
very, very accurate.
Wow.
And so I, but especially the physical, like I was on my way to like, wow, this is really remarkable. And then when I asked about his leg, he had a bum right hip,
Okay.
and she identified it. Like I was like, okay, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, but then I was like, I think I'm a believer, but I still, basically, it was like the ice had been cracked, it was starting to flow through. And then a couple months later, a friend of mine referred me to this medium, Lisa Silverman. And
Mm-hmm.
went mostly out of curiosity, because I was a little, like I said, I was a little overwhelmed. Like, I'm trying to integrate these new experiences and this new paradigm that I'm seeing life in,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
one that I'm still kind of resistant to, you know. And so then I went to had the reading with Lisa, and I mean, just talking to her on the phone, like some of the things that she was telling me over the phone were pretty amazing before this session even happened. But then I go into the session, and she connected me with my uncle, my aunt, my grandma, and Tyson. And it was like, it was it ended up being a 2 hour session. It was only supposed to be an
Wow.
hour. And it was like the closest thing that she came to being inaccurate on anything was, I asked her, I said, tell me about the tattoo. And and she goes, oh, are you going to get Tyson's face? Are you going to get him tattooed on are you going to get him and I said, no. And within literally about 5 seconds, she goes, you got his paw tattooed on you. Well,
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Right.
And
Wow.
I was like, okay, wow. I mean, it was then, but the information, I mean, like my uncle, it was the stuff that she was telling me about him and
Mm-hmm.
describing his personality and what he looked like. And I mean, it was things about like how he died that was
Mm-hmm.
very specific. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
were things that you would not say unless you were
Sure.
talking,
Sure.
And so my aunt, my grandma, similar, it was mind blowing. And
Yeah.
in the book, I actually, the chapter on that, I call it Coffee with Loved Ones, because I literally felt like when I left, I was in a daze. When these, if you've ever had one of these readings, it's really intense like this, and like there's a lot really flowing through.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
overwhelming. I mean, it kind of, you're
Sure.
like trying to think of things to ask, and you're just like, it's pretty amazing.
Well, so
Um,
let me ask you some questions about that because I personally, I mean, I can remember being a skeptic many years ago, but
yeah,
I've just had too many experiences, and
same.
I've even called myself a psychic fetish. I say I have a psychic fetish because I don't go to a psychic to get information for myself, but I have a lot of friends who are psychics. I produce shows for psychics, and I just love watching a psychic reading happening because I can feel it, right?
Yeah,
And that's really what I wanted to talk to you about and ask you about because I feel like, you definitely sound like you had a lot of skepticism, and even in the way you talk about it, it still sounds like it, but it also sounds
no,
like you definitely
I'm not
do believe
skeptical
it.
anymore. I'm
Right,
not
exactly,
anymore.
right, right.
But man, it took a lot. It took a lot. I
Yeah,
mean,
but I want to talk about that because I don't think I love evidential mediumship. I love the evidence. I love those stories of, oh my God, how would you know that, right? But But that's only like the delivery part of mediumship, right? I feel like the energy part of mediumship is really the part that I love because there it's palpable, right? It's like these messages are coming through and these words and these descriptions of people and who they were, but it's like they're there, right? It's like their essence.
Mm.
You're talking about somebody's essence. You're conjuring that essence. You're
Well, and
existing
that
in
was
that
what was
essence.
so remarkable about that session was that she captured. I mean, she was talking to him, and they were right there, and I probably was feeling without even at that point, the
Mhm.
clairsentience, and that it was I was feeling their energy, and when I left that day, and I got in my car to drive home, I literally it was like the coffee with loved ones. I felt like I had walked
Mhm.
into like a Denny's or something to have a meal, and there they are
Yeah.
sitting there in the corner. Hey, Brandon, come over here and sit down and hang out with us for. That's what it was like.
Wow.
It was really it was really beautiful, and but yeah, I mean, it wasn't just like didactic information. It was there was an essence to in a good medium can that's really tapping in and really feeling can is going to be able to kind of to communicate that essence, I think, to your
Hmm.
point. And
Hmm. Hmm.
and so it was, I give Lisa a lot of credit because it for I mean, as far as my opening, because that was something that was it was a very healing experience because I was communicating with people that had been gone since I was a teenager,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
and things that I had feelings about that some unresolved feelings, and there was information that came through about that really gave, but just knowing that they were okay and that they were still around
Right.
and that there was still love there, and there was you know all these things like the oneness and the idea of eternal, that we're eternal and
Hmm.
that we stay connected.
Hmm.
Those concepts are that's the I think the real beneficial aspect of mediumship is that that you get to really experience these ideas that are really what it's all about. That
Yeah.
you know, and so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, and you know what? I mean, it's here in the Sacred Spiral Network, you know what I mean? This is the mainstream. This is what we all, like said, we all subscribe to this, idea that there's more to it, right? 3D isn't the end all be all.
Mhm.
And I think that's why we're all here. So what's what I want to go to next is it sounds like, and I love the way the story is progressing, right? Is that you felt all of this stuff and all of this healing, and which is often the case, right? You don't even know that you have this pain and how it affects you.
Mhm.
And then suddenly you heal from it and you're like, oh my God, and you feel lighter and the world is lighter, you see more love, all of these things. Um, and now you said, and we didn't even really talk about it, but now you said you do healing work. So how did that experience evolve and grow into where you are now?
Well, after this experience I had with Lisa, I, I wanted to I wanted a way that I could delve in and do and explore my own abilities and to go further and have more experiences. And a friend of mine at work, another police officer, was learning Reiki, had taken a Reiki class, and I was talking to her about it, and she said, I think this would be a great step for you. She could take it. So she referred me to the same teacher that she had had,
Hmm.
and I went and I had this amazing experience at the first level of Reiki, and and then I started practicing on the daily, and then eventually I got distance Reiki, and then a Reiki master, and then I ended up going to Delphi University, which is in McKaysville, Georgia, northern Georgia. I
Hmm.
just completed a doctorate in metaphysical healing
Wow.
in November. So it's
Amazing.
been like I've gone deeper and deeper and deeper, learning more and more modalities that require more skill and more. But but the initial stage, um, I was like, what was amazing was the energy grows. At least this is the experience I had. Like when I first when I first started doing it, I just instinctively knew to bring light in, and nobody told me to do it. I just started bringing light in and swirling at my heart chakra, and I just had this natural ability to channel my hands and with breath,
Nice.
and if but over time it grew more, and I've got like a flamethrower at this point.
Nice.
In the beginning it was I probably just wasn't feeling it as much as I do now. It was probably going through me just as much, but when I first learned it, my ex-wife was my first patient, and I was working on her. She was really open to it. Oh yeah, I'm on. Bring it on. And so, and after it was impacting her, really powerful impact on her, like her ability, like it made it so she could sleep better instantly.
Wow.
I mean, we're talking a lady that was always torqued up and was always having trouble sleeping. And the first night after I gave her first session, and it repeated it. This pattern repeated itself. But she went to bed, fell asleep, and didn't move an inch. Woke up in the exact same position she'd fallen asleep completely.
Wow.
Best night's sleep she ever had. And I was like, wow, this is like really cool, And so I'm doing these things, and then not long after that, I learned the next level of Reiki where you can do remote healing. And then I started practicing every day, where if I ran into somebody that needed some kind of healing, I would offer it to them and I'd say, hey, when I get home from work tonight, I'll do a session for you. And I did that for probably a year and a half. And I at first I was working like 2 hours every night. And then I started to taper off a little bit. And it was more like a half hour to an hour, but I became really powerful just by virtue of practicing every day. And
amazing.
And then I ended up going to Delphi and learning all these other modalities, and also trying to see what my intuitive abilities were, seeing if I have mediumship abilities, seeing if I have psychic abilities. And we all do. And I do. I learned that I do have these things. But for me at this point in time, my main strength is healing. It's not so much information. It's more, I see things and I'll pass it on. I try to interpret it, but I don't have that wild ability to give information like some intuitives have. So
and I think that's okay. Everybody feels it differently and receives it differently and transmits it differently. And I'm a little envious of some of the stuff you're talking about, because I feel like like especially with Reiki and certain energy things, that like you seem like, I want to know what that experience was. You said you went to Reiki for the first time and you had an experience. I want to know what that was, because that's what's driven you since then. You had such an experience that was so powerful that you felt something, right? And I
did
had those, but like I haven't had an experience where I'm now driven every day to go deeper and deeper. And it sounds like that's kind of what was driving you, right? So what was that experience?
Yeah, it was. Well, the Reiki one, they do the attunement. It was the Usui Reiki that I learned for the first 2 levels, and they have the whole initiation and or attunement. And I just remember I sat down and I could feel spirits around me. I could feel their presence. I could feel it was like somebody was. And it was just really powerful, and I could feel them moving, and I could feel hands on me.
Wow!
And
that's powerful.
And at the time, that was all new, this type of experience. So it was really powerful. But the love I felt, like Tyson, I could feel, what I'll never know 100% sure, but I'm pretty damn sure that Tyson was present, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful, and it was powerful, and now since then, I have experiences all the time now, like where I'll feel hands on my head, when sometimes I'll feel it out of the, even when I'm not even working on.
Wow.
I've gone through I've gone through a lot in my personally over the last few years. There's
Yeah,
lots
yeah,
of
yeah.
personal changes in my life that have been a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, and there's there are healers that are with me that are working on me, and I can feel them. I can
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
feel
I definitely, like I said, I'm a little bit envious because I feel like you're definitely ultra sensitive to it. You know, at this moment in your life or the last couple of years since this whole experience.
Have you learned Reiki or anything like that?
I have not learned Reiki. My wife is a Reiki master teacher. Um,
Really?
yeah. I am. I don't practice anything specific. This is my space. This is the way I move energy around, right? I talk to people. I reflect with people. Um, I mean, I feel like there's more to it for sure. You know what I mean? But I just haven't been given that slip of paper that says this is it. You know what I
This
mean?
is it.
And
The reality, this is the other thing that I've learned. Reiki is a particular frequency of energy, right? There's different types of Reiki that have different frequencies. Um, and some people might argue with me. I don't call myself a guru or knower of everything by any means.
right, right,
But
good.
my belief is that one thing about Reiki that's kind of cool, the way it's taught, is that there's steps. It gives you a structure to work with. And I
Hmm.
think especially in the West, that's what we like. For somebody like me,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
somebody
yeah.
the way my brain works and the way my experiences have been up to that point, having those steps to follow helped me to say, okay, well, as long as I'm doing these steps, I'm doing it right. And therefore, as I can do this channeling, and what I'm feeling is real. Eventually, you realize that even with Reiki, you don't have to do these steps. And with other energy work too that you choose to do, if you're channeling loving, healing light, and that's your intention, it's all around us all the time anyway.
Yeah,
There's
absolutely.
nothing. All you have to do is ask for it, and it's there.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but these are things that it's hard to believe that if you come from a more traditional
Absolutely. No,
conservative
and that's
background,
what.
until you've experienced it and you start to
Yeah,
trust it. But because
yeah.
like for example at Delphi, they teach there's a course, there's a class called energy healer, and there's a number of different things you learn in there, but it's very similar to Reiki in terms of the way it's applied. But there's no initiation. There's no Well, there is an initiation, but there wasn't like attunements, like these
Right,
special
right,
antenna that they put on your head, or
right,
anything
right,
like
right,
that. It was just like, go for it.
right,
And
right.
and and you find, because a lot of the people that I met at Delphi, classmates, they didn't necessarily know Reiki. They hadn't learned it. They were aware of it. Some of them
Right.
were into Reiki, but a lot of them weren't. But they were able to, So I guess my point is for you is I would say just go for it and try it, because
You know what?
but like
See,
what you said is true though. What you said about this is my space, this is my energy. It's true. Everything has different form, and in your form, you're giving people a voice, and you're
yeah.
being a community space for people. So you are a healer. You're doing the
And I do think that I am going for it. And listen, Brandon, believe me, I'm human, so I question myself all the time, right? Like, what am I doing exactly? This, that. But there's a part of me that knows who I am. And I want to actually take this moment to address this whole thing, right? Because the community is amazing, right? In behind the scenes, as you and I are having this discussion, there's so much energy being passed back and forth in the chat room,
Mhm.
between people. So I just want to address Kim Princess, who immediately when you started talking about your story, she was reminded of her Lucy. and she was feeling a lot of pain, and a lot of people in the chat room, they were talking back and forth about it. And for me, that the idea, when I try to tell people when they're feeling these things and when they're grieving and they're like, oh my God, I'm feeling so sad. You're feeling sad because Lucy is here. She's right here with you, and you're sensing her. So instead of feeling sad, I would recommend, I'd say, feel happy. Feel the presence of Lucy.
Mm.
Feel the presence of Tyson, right? You know this. You're you know this when you're feeling this
Well,
feeling, it's real. It's a real feeling.
just another concept that's, that's become solidified for me, as in my walk, as I've journeyed through all this, is, the concept of oneness. It's not just an idea. I mean, it's the reality of things. We are all one. We're all connected. We are all part of God. And but one of the things about Reiki, especially distance Reiki, or remote healing of any kind, that you realize is that, in order for that to work, like with Reiki, you've got these steps. You do the symbols and stuff, right? And you think of it's like you're an operator plugging in. You're going to connect. The fact that you can connect to a person that's on the other side of the planet or on the moon or whatever, that tells you that all you have to do is will it, and you can connect to that soul. So, with Lucy, Kim, my thing is, all you got to do is say, hey, Lucy, I love you and I want to be connected to you. And literally at that moment you are. And it's not, this isn't an abstract thing. It's real. It's real. And I know this because I've done enough remote work to where it's like, there's no other explanation. It doesn't, these things wouldn't be happening, and so, but what, back to you, as far as you wanting to have these experiences, I would really highly recommend Reiki, because it does, in practice of it gets you to start focusing and becoming more sensitive to that energy, and you will start to feel it. So I'm not saying that you're not doing healing, but if you desire to have those experiences and feel those sensations, I say, hey honey, I need the attunement.
Brandon, you're 1,000,000% right. And I was actually thinking that, as you were talking, you said a couple things earlier. You talked about your skills, right? And then you were talking about practice. And I don't think I think it is more of practice than actually skills, right? I think it's the idea that you're practicing and you're constantly doing it. And Brian, who is the wizard in the chat room right now, will attest to that, right? So Brian actually has some students who he's taught how to spin a rod. So they're with energy in their mind, able to manipulate the 3D, right? And it's real. You know what I mean? I've seen it. I've been around it, and it's practice. It's really committing to intention. You know what I mean? And all of these things. It's really true. And we see Debbie Wallace. I am a Reiki master. I felt it before I learned it. Yeah. And everything you're saying resonates with my understanding of energy healing and connection to universal source as well. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that, I think that is, again, part of why I do this, because I feel like it's important for us in this day and age, in this moment in time, to really reaffirm what we know, right? Because I think there's a lot of things outside of us, outside of this little bubble here tonight, in the outside world, that make us question those things, right? They introduce fear, they introduce anger, they introduce all of these things that are going on, and it's really kind of focusing within, and knowing who you are, that keeps you kind of safe, right, and happy, and not only safe and happy, but also energetically beaming, right, so that other people can feel safe and happy. You know what I mean? You're not transmitting the fear and the anger. You're not kind of buying into that paradigm. Right. I don't know what to say. I try not to talk about it too much.
That's the thing. All of it raises your frequency. It raises what you're putting out there to other people. And yeah, it has a big impact. Like staying in a state where you're struggling and you're negative, you're having that kind of an impact on other people, and so there's almost like a duty. We're
A
all
million
human.
percent, a million percent. That's the biggest thing for me. It's like I love I love this whole community. I love spirituality. I love woo woo, but I also know what's out there, right? And I know the resistance to woo woo is out there, right? So what I love is kind of putting it in, just everyday terms, and which is why I just do breathing right at the beginning of the show. Like I'm not saying anything about it other than we're just going to do some breaths. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that itself has its powers, right? I think that it's really important to connect with your breath, even just for three of them. you
yeah,
know?
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I think that's
So
great. It's a
yeah.
good way to
So
start the show.
yeah. So I mean, whatever I evolve into is what's going to be, right? This is where I'm at in the moment. But I love what you're saying, Brandon, and I appreciate it. And I love all of the people in the audience who are constantly encouraging me. And I loved what was going on earlier in the chat room. Everybody was kind of talking about everybody else and how amazing they are. You're such an amazing person. You're such an amazing soul. You have wisdom. That's that's our reality that we're creating together here, where we're all supporting each other, we're all bringing each other up. No, there's none of the, nobody's talking about which Super Bowl show is better or anything like that, which is just makes me laugh. I honestly gotta kind of laugh at all of that stuff.
Well,
Uh,
it's funny. It's funny you say that. Just on another note, what I found that's it's difficult. Part of when you have your spiritual awakening and you go down this path, the things in the 3D that you used to be focused on, that used to turn your switch and keep you occupied or keep you interested. At least my experience, I've found that it's less and less so. And you're like things like the Super Bowl. I don't care. Things like whatever. What's the guy's name? Bad whatever.
Bad Bunny, yeah, man.
Bad, yeah,
Bad
whatever.
whatever, bad whatever,
I,
yeah.
I mean, just things like that. It just these things don't. They become like less and less important, and as you become more focused on the big picture, oneness, our connectedness, love being the most powerful force, and things like that. And I think the other thing that I've found in my own experience is when it comes to like mediumship, healing, all these things, it's all wonderful, especially when you're new to it, it's a testimonial. It's to the reality of these things. For me, without them, I don't think I would have been able to fully open up and become convinced that this was even real, which has then led to the bigger concepts, right? But I think it's important to try to keep it in perspective and realize that, it's not about these parlor tricks. It's about the big picture, oneness, love, connectedness, miracles. And so that's my thing, is that's where I'm at now, is like I was so focused on like trying to develop my own abilities, psychic abilities, and it was hard. Like I was hard down on myself. Why can't I learn this and what? And it's like, well, the reality is these things aren't. There's other people that do have these abilities, and they have them for a reason. You don't for a reason,
Right.
But you're just as much a part of God. You're just as much connected. You're no more powerful or less powerful, and then you're seeing things from that big picture. I'm actually thankful at this point that I didn't open up into all that ability, because I would have wanted to use it like a parlor trick. I mean, I still would have had the same.
Right.
I would have had the same. I still would have wanted it to be about love and talk about my dog and all that kind of thing.
Sure.
But I would have been less acutely aware of the big picture. I would have been less focused on that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Get
that
out of my
makes a million
soapbox.
percent. Yeah.
I'll get off my
No, it's not a
soapbox.
soapbox
You
at all.
know,
No, I want you
so
to talk about your book. I'm going to put the website up
yes,
here at the
Courtney,
bottom.
ego,
Uh,
ego.
tysonsgift.com is where you can get the book Ego. Yeah, I talk about that all the time. And it's really, and it's not a matter of getting rid of ego. It's a matter of coming to terms and kind of living with your ego and understanding what it is. You know what I mean? And not letting ego, not leading with ego, lead with the heart, not leading with the
Right.
ego, I believe. Um, so I want you to tell me a little bit about the book, but also I was curious to know if you had any specific kind of thoughts comparing before the experience and after the experience about life. Like, were you happy before? Do you think you're happy now?
Yeah, I was happy before. I
Okay.
was, well, if you really want, I was happily married.
Hmm.
And it brought a lot of joy, richness to my life, just having this, knowing that, I mean, for one thing, having this beautiful experience with Tyson was
Hmm.
so uplifting.
Hmm.
I mean, to anybody that ever loved their dog, to have that gift of this afterlife experience with this beautiful soul. I mean, it it made me very much aware of the beauty of things. It made me focus in on those things and want to perpetuate that and help other people see it and that kind of thing. But um, the evolution of it, because after you evolve and you get deeper and deeper and deeper, and you're trying to understand what the biggest picture is. And what happened with me was it ultimately, it kind of it created a rift in my marriage,
Hmm.
because my ex-wife she was really into it and positive about it for the longest time, and then all of a sudden she went full fundamentalist
Mm.
and decided that it was dark, and
Mm.
that what I was doing was actually bad, and
Wow.
and and it completely turned my life upside down, and has been the most difficult thing I've ever had to go through, because
Wow.
I'm completely aware that this is real, these things,
Hmm.
and it's
Hmm.
and it's beautiful and it's light. I can't just
Hmm.
unlearn that and forget that
Right.
and so,
Wow.
but it also has forced me to see it for the big picture,
Hmm.
to see, to
Hmm.
understand
Hmm.
that this is all happening for a reason, and it doesn't mean that my ex-wife is a bad person.
Of
We're
course.
still, she's still a beautiful soul who's on her
Yeah.
journey, and she's still just as much a part of God. And it's yeah, it took the focus off of, hey, I gotta get this practice going, and I gotta get this podcast going, and and I'm trying, because that's what I was trying to do, is make it all successful, with all these things, and be a voice. And it's forced me to get down to the nitty gritty of what this whole three-dimensional earthly experience is for,
Yeah.
and to roles. And again, if I'm honest, I'm still struggling through it.
Sure. And I
I
appreciate
mean,
that honesty. And I think we all are. And I think, interestingly enough, I kind of enjoy that part of it too, right? It's like, it's almost like I've been saying that a lot. Like, I enjoy adversity because I feel like I grow. I feel like I don't grow when I'm in my comfort zone. I grow when I'm experiencing things that are challenging me and making me kind of think differently and get out of that box. You know what I mean?
yeah, well,
And
and I will say that this whole, I mean, it has, the growing has been exponential,
yeah,
compared to, so, but yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I was happy, but I think there were a lot of things that there were a lot of just living distractions, a
sure.
lot
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
and there's nothing wrong with that to some extent,
No, no,
I mean, what
no.
you're,
To every extent, there's nothing wrong. Listen, everything happens. I know you believe this, the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to, where it's supposed to, how it's supposed to, right? I really love your energy, Brandon. I feel like you are so grounded. You know what I mean? You have such a really good grasp of of it, whatever it is, right? And that's always changing too, right? And that grasp is always changing. So in the moment, you know what I mean? You feel like you're in a good spot. You wrote a book. You said you have another one coming out. You know, you're helping people. You're healing people. I mean, we didn't. I feel like we only scratched the surface of with you, Brandon. I'm probably gonna have to ask you to come back and talk some more because I
Anytime.
definitely, yeah, I definitely. I mean, I love your energy. Interestingly enough, by the way, we were talking about Kim and Lucy and losing Lucy and the pain she was going through, and everybody kind of helped, I think, bring her to a better space. But now here it is, an hour into it, and she says, "Wait, Tyson was a Chihuahua. So was Lucy. Same color
Hmm.
too."
Yeah, yeah. He looks, and that picture there, he looks much bigger than he actually was. He was only 8 pounds, but man, did he have a big soul, big heart. Yeah.
Amazing, yeah. And Evelyn says, "Tiny but mighty big love."
Yeah, Chihuahuas. I up until him, I loved all dogs, but if I figured if I was going to have a dog it would be a bigger dog or whatever. But man,
He
yeah,
stole your heart. He took it. He took it.
yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Well, Brandon, thank you. You're really awesome to talk to. I love your story. Again, like I said, I love your energy. Um, do you have any words of wisdom for my audience? Any well wishes? Anything? Dad jokes? I know I always ask for that. Something.
um, I would say just try to keep that focus on that Christ consciousness, oneness. I mean, whatever it is that you're doing in life, whether it be you're doing healing work or you're working at a grocery store, or I don't know, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It really the specifics of it isn't as important as the energy and the love that you're bringing to it, because that person, for example, on the street that's laying there, with the beer in their hand and begging for money, is just as much a part of God as you are. You know, if you're a doctor, a powerful doctor, and you're seeing making all kinds of money, and you're doing complicated surgeries or whatever, you're no more important than that guy laying there with that beer. And so whatever it is that you're doing in the world, just do it with that consciousness as much as you can. Bring that love, bring that humility, bring that purity. And if you can do that, most of the time, which that's all you can ask for. No one's perfect. I mess up all the time. The other day, I'm I had treated somebody, I was super rude to this person. I apologized, but I was like, God, what are you doing? But if most of the time you can bring that, then you are bringing light to the world, and you're making the world a better place. You're accomplishing a mission that
Beautiful.
that isn't dependent on societal standards.
Right.
That is what's important. And then have fun while you're doing it. That's my
Yeah.
thing. As much as you can, have
I
fun.
love it.
Don't be afraid to go out to the pub and get a beer and have a good time. And
Right.
I guess that's it. I know it's kind of whatever.
No, that's great. Listen, don't take it so seriously, but do it with good intentions, right? I mean,
Yeah, as much as you can, and wherever you're at with your abilities or your skills, or even your consciousness and what you're able to focus on or not focus on,
Mhm.
you're doing the best that you can, and just bring as much light as you can, and that's all you can do. And there's
I
no
love it.
judgment. That's the reality. God does not see one of us better than the other, no matter what. So if you're
I
bringing the
love it.
light,
I love it. And I love that you kind of said, I'm not really religious, but you talk very passionately about God. And I love that. I
oh
think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's great. It's amazing.
I'm a God man now. Just not
Awesome.
religious. It's just
We all are.
yeah.
We're all God, right?
That's
Amazing.
right.
Amazing. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for being here. I'm gonna wrap it up. I don't want you to go anywhere when I run the credits. I want to talk to you afterwards a little bit and just thank you for being here. I do have a guest I'm looking forward to on Thursday. The live stream of consciousness. I'm going to be talking to Jacob Cooper, who is also an author, near-death experiencer, who has a couple of books out and is also now offering a master class on one of these amazing hypnotherapy websites. I forget which it is, but Jacob is an amazing guy I've been friends with for many years, and he's just great to talk to. So
Very
please
cool.
come by, and like I said, we'll have you back on the show. And don't go anywhere. I'm going to play the outro.
I
And
just my buddy tuned in, Jim Jim Gomez out
what's
in
up, Jim
Ravenna,
Gomez?
Ohio. He just gave me a shout out. Great job,
He said
Burrito.
you
That's
did a
my name.
great job, Burrito. You did do a great job.
I just want to acknowledge him for tuning in. I appreciate you, Jimmy. Thank you, buddy.
As do I, Jimmy. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Brandon, for being here, and thank you all for being here. We'll see you on the other side, this side. We'll see you somewhere soon. Peace.